If you've ever watched Jackie and Shadow's nest cam, you probably feel like you know these eagles. We've watched them build a nest, endure storms, raise their young, and face heartbreak and loss. We become emotionally invested because we feel so close to them. And now Jackie is fighting for her life. So let me give a brief overview of where we're at. On July 17th, 2026, Jackie went missing from the nest. Then she was spotted on the ground, struggling after an altercation with two other eagles. Duke and Anna Blackwood witnessed the altercation. They said they believed that Jackie was already sick and that that's why the other eagles attacked her. They said she moped around on the shore for hours. And at 9:30 p.m., they were not comfortable going inside and just leaving her alone out there. There's coyotes and lots of wildlife in Big Bear, California. They said in an interview that they didn't initially know who to call and that they even called 911, but 911 said, "We don't know what you're talking about." They were trying to explain that it was Jackie and Shadow, and they didn't know. And they eventually called the San Bernardino County Fire Department. At that point, we knew that an injured bald eagle was rescued from the Dana Point Park area by wildlife officials from the County of Los Angeles Department of Parks and Recreation's San Dimas Raptor Rescue. I just want to interject that I've been to the San Dimas Regional Park, and they do have a little zoo there where they rehab a lot of animals, and it's really nice. It's small, but it's really nice. And if you are local to that at all, I highly recommend you go. I've also been to the Friends of Big Bear Valley. Like, it's a small zoo, and they do a lot of rehabbing there too. And if you are local, I encourage you to go there as well. So the eagle was believed to be Jackie, but she doesn't have any bands. She doesn't have any tags. If you've seen the eagles Scruffy and Lie that I used to go see in person and photograph and film quite often, the female Lie did have a large tag on her wing, so she could be easily identified. And some eagles have bands on their legs that can identify them. Jackie has neither, so making a positive identification was a bit challenging. And ultimately, she was transferred to the Ojai Raptor Center. They looked at her and they looked at many photographs and videos of Jackie. They finally concluded that it was most likely Jackie. And she is now receiving care at the Ojai Raptor Center, which is over 3 hours away from Big Bear, California. They felt it was better equipped to manage the care that she needed. And the latest information that has been released reveals that she has severe anemia and inflammation of her kidneys. And her condition has been described as critical. This is a current situation. There will be updates coming, and I will be making update videos. So please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the update videos that are coming. But for a minute, I want to back up and say, who is Jackie? Why is she so well known and loved? So let's back up to the year 2012. Jackie was hatched in 2012. Her sort of official hatch date that people celebrate is February 1st. Her parents were bald eagles Ricky and Lucy. I do want to interject with a side note that there is another bald eagle pair named Ricky and Lucy, and they are not the same eagles. Her parents, we actually don't know where they are at this point, but the Ricky and Lucy that people do talk about now live in the Prado wetlands in Riverside County, California. So those are not her parents, just to avoid any confusion. So her name was originally Jack. She was named after a local Forest Service volunteer, but then she grew larger than both of her parents and they realized she was actually a female. So they changed her name from Jack to Jackie. Moving forward, in October of 2015, Friends of Big Bear Valley installed the first nest cam. And in 2016, Jackie's parents left the area. And since they're not tagged or banded, we aren't really sure where they are. In fall of 2017, Jackie claimed her parents' nest, and she began bonding with a male eagle named Mr. B. And the webcast began broadcasting their daily lives. In early 2018, Jackie and Mr. B successfully hatched 2 chicks. They were named Stormy and BBB. Unfortunately, BBB did not survive a severe storm, but Stormy successfully fledged. Moving forward to the summer of 2018, a younger eagle that we know as Shadow showed up, and he challenged Mr. B. And after a non-violent standoff, Mr. B left, and Jackie accepted Shadow as her permanent mate. So then looking at 2019 to 2022, and let me interject here that I found this live webcam in the year 2020. That's when I first became aware of it and started watching and became very invested with these eagles myself. And let me also add, during this time range in 2021 is when the Friends of Big Bear Valley added the second wide angle camera. I will have links to both of their live web stream cameras, the Nest and the wide angle, in my description box below. So during this time, Jackie and Shadow navigate extreme mountain winters, and they defend their nest from intruders. They successfully raise several fledglings, including Simba and Spirit, though they also endure the heartbreaking loss of multiple unhatched eggs to harsh breezes. Moving forward to 2023 to 2024, the live stream at this point is capturing worldwide attention as millions tune in to watch the pair co-incubate eggs through massive mountain blizzards. Moving to 2025 and 2026, the pair successfully hatched and raised 2 healthy fledglings named Sunny and Gizmo. Moving to January of 2026, Jackie laid her first clutch of the year, but sadly ravens breached and ate both eggs while they were left unattended. February through April of 2026, Jackie capitalized on the early season biology reset, and she laid a second clutch of eggs. Both of these eggs hatched in April, and we welcomed chicks Sandy and Luna. On a side note, Sandy was named after Sandy Steers, who was a longtime executive director of the Friends of the Big Bear Valley. In June of 2026, both Sandy and Luna successfully take their first flights from the nest tree. And that brings us to July of 2026, which is right now, and the situation that we are dealing with Jackie. It's important to note that Jackie isn't just a famous eagle. She has become a symbol of wildlife conservation, the recovery of bald eagle populations. And I spoke on this in a previous video I did about bald eagles. It focused more on Scruffy and Lie, but there was some very general information on bald eagles in that video as well. I will put a link to that video in the description box in case you want to check it out. And the power of wildlife live streams that connect people with nature and the importance of protecting habitats. This nest cam has allowed people to see behaviors that most people would never witness, even in the wild. I'm a wildlife photographer, and Scruffy and Lie were my most up-close sightings of bald eagles and most birds. I did witness some red-shouldered hawks nesting, but there is something magical about the live stream nest cam that you can turn on at any moment, and you can see every little detail. You can even see into the nest. That was one thing with Scruffy and Lie. You cannot see into the nest. You can look straight out at it, but we didn't know how many eggs there were. And finally, when the baby hatches, then you know how many there are. But there still could be eggs in there that never hatched. And we don't know that information because there's no camera. So the camera is a really nice thing, and it really does bring you closer to them. But it's important to keep in mind that Jackie's story has never been a story of perfect success. It's always been a story of resilience. Hi guys, I just want to interrupt your video for one quick moment and ask a favor. YouTube is telling me that the majority of my viewers are not subscribed to the channel. So if that's you, if you're watching and you're not subscribed, I would so appreciate if you would subscribe. Also, if you're enjoying this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you hit that bell icon, it will notify you when I upload videos in the future. I really do appreciate your support, and it helps me continue to make videos just like this. Thank you so much. Now back to your video. So let's look back at the nest for a moment. Let's look at Shadow's role right now. You know, birds are very social, and bald eagles have mates for life. It's kind of like a married couple. I honestly can't imagine what he's thinking or feeling that she's just gone. I don't know if he witnessed them take her. Even if he did, he doesn't understand why or what's happening. But his role right now is sole attending parent. He's a single dad right now. Friends of Big Bear Valley have described Shadow as an excellent mate and father. And he is currently caring for the fledglings as well as protecting the territory and nest. He is providing food for the fledglings. This is probably his most important immediate job. You know, people keep asking, are these eaglets old enough to survive without Jackie? We don't really know. but we can theorize and speculate and give our best educated guesses. These young eagles are now capable of flying to and from perches, actively taking food. And this is a major difference from what their life was like just a few weeks earlier. Had this happened a few weeks earlier, there's a good chance they would not have survived. But they're at an age now where there is a good chance that they will. But it's important to remember that Shadow isn't just a food delivery service for them. He's also maintaining the territory and the nest. And this is very important because bald eagles are very territorial. And the family still needs a safe place to roost, perch, nest, forage, and continue developing. Shadow is also helping these fledglings transition towards their own independence. This is where timing becomes extremely important. Thankfully, Sandy and Luna are no longer helpless little nestlings. Both have now fledged and are flying. Sandy had an unexpected early departure from the nest tree in late June, followed by Luna's first flight, and both have subsequently been observed flying and exploring the area around the nest. They are still juveniles who need parental support, but they're much closer to independence than they were even just a few weeks ago. So based on that, I think there is a very good possibility that they will survive this and be successful. But that doesn't mean they're completely independent yet. They still need a parent for things like bringing food, helping them learn where and how to find food, protecting their territory, and providing a safe and secure place to roost, while potentially responding to threats and continuing that transition from fledgling to independent eagle. So like I said, a lot of people are asking if they're going to survive without Jackie. And I do think there's a lot of hope. But I also have to point out that their survival is not guaranteed. And the biggest variable here is Shadow himself. If Shadow remains healthy and continues to provide food and protection, then these fledglings have a very good chance, in my opinion. The other major factor, though, is that there are siblings. There are two of them working together. That does make a big difference versus when there's only one chick on its own. Okay, so moving back to Jackie. So what happened to Jackie here? Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Jackie disappeared. There was a report of an eagle fight. There was an eagle found struggling in the water. That eagle was rescued. It was initially stabilized. It was transferred to rehabilitation. It was identified as very likely to be Jackie. Then diagnostic testing was done, which leads to the current medical findings that we do have. So looking at this altercation between eagles, bald eagles, like a lot of other animals, are very territorial. Sometimes territorial disputes can be extremely violent, and multiple birds can become involved. Injuries may not always be initially or immediately obvious. A bird can appear to have survived the initial event, but then subsequently develop serious complications. This fight may be part of the story here, but the reality is we don't yet know whether it explains anything or everything medically that is happening to Jackie. At this time, I am not aware of any evidence that the fight was directly related to her current health status. And I have seen many people theorizing that the reason she was attacked, those eagles that attacked her already knew that she was weak, and that's why they chose to attack her. We don't know, but that is a theory that I see going around, and it does seem plausible. So, little known fact on this channel is the fact that I am, in fact, a registered nurse. Now, I'm not a veterinarian, and I'm not part of Jackie's veterinarian care team, but I am going to explain these findings from a general medical perspective. I will not be diagnosing Jackie or even second-guessing the rehab specialists. So they have revealed to the public that she is anemic. Many people don't even know what anemia is, so I want to break that down. It is a lack of red blood cells and most likely a lack of hemoglobin. And this is all involved in oxygen transport in your body, which is extremely important. Severe anemia can be very dangerous because oxygen delivery is very important, and lack of it can be a cause for serious concern. So what are symptoms of anemia? Well, the most common would be fatigue, weakness, shortness of breath, and confusion. When I saw the video footage of Jackie in the water struggling, I would have to say she looked fatigued. She looked weak, possibly even confused, And I can't evaluate if she was short of breath, but I would bet on it. So some causes of anemia could be nutritional deficiencies, genetic diseases, heavy bleeding is often the biggest cause. So traumatic injuries. Lead poisoning is a possibility. This is because lead blocks the body's ability to create the heme, which is the part of the hemoglobin that binds to the oxygen. And also because lead directly damages the membranes of the existing red blood cells. This makes them fragile and causes them to break down faster than they can be replaced. Lead also physically competes for iron, so high lead levels is going to cause an iron deficiency because it blocks iron uptake in your body. But I want to emphasize, we do not know the exact cause of anemia for Jackie based on the publicly released information as of this time. I am just sharing information about anemia in general. So we also know that they released the information that there is inflammation in her kidneys. And I do want to point out here that kidney physiology in birds is not identical to human kidney physiology, which is what I have learned and been trained in. But generally speaking, kidneys regulate fluid and electrolyte balance in the body. They do play a role in waste removal, and kidney dysfunction can have systemic consequences. So I just want to mention a few possible causes of kidney inflammation. I am not diagnosing Jackie in any way, just sharing general medical information. It could be dehydration. It could be reduced perfusion. It could be trauma or infection. It could be toxins like lead, zinc, rodenticides, which they did mention that they are testing for, but the results for those toxicology reports do take some time. There could be other underlying disease processes going on. But I do want to point out that since things like lead, zinc, rodenticides are filtered out through the kidneys and they are highly toxic, it does stand to reason that the kidneys would be inflamed from them. So that is a very good possibility here. Again, I am not diagnosing, just sharing general medical information. As a nurse, I'm used to thinking about kidney function through a human medical lens, if you will. But Jackie is a bird, and avian physiology is different. So I want to be careful to not assume that every human medical interpretation applies directly to her. So just theorizing generally, trauma could lead to blood loss and anemia, which could lead to reduced oxygen delivery in the body, which could lead to physiological stress. And potentially, then illness from the physiological stress could lead to dehydration and poor perfusion, which could lead to kidney stress or even injury. Again, this is just a general physiological explanation. This is not a diagnosis of Jackie. One thing that's important to keep in mind is that severe illness often isn't just one isolated problem. When an animal experiences trauma or another major physiological insult, multiple organ systems can become involved. This could potentially explain why she survived an attack, but is still critically ill. So a lot of people are questioning the fact that she's alert and she's eating. Doesn't that mean she's okay or she's doing better or getting better? So yes, the fact that she's eating is encouraging. The fact that she is alert is encouraging. The fact that she's being cranky is very encouraging because that shows that she has enough energy to do so. But none of those necessarily mean that the patient is out of danger. A patient can be awake, alert, and eating while still having serious physiological abnormalities under the surface. Any patient can show encouraging signs while still being critically ill. Those things are not mutually exclusive. So what is going on right now? What can we expect to be happening in rehabilitation for Jackie? I'm not there. I don't know. I'm just theorizing on the types of things that do typically go on there. They would be doing serial blood work, monitoring her anemia, monitoring her kidney function, her hydration status, her nutritional support, evaluating for infections, imaging if indicated, but they did say that they already did imaging and they saw no signs of metal in her, no fish hooks or any of that. They also said she had no broken bones. They will definitely be monitoring neurological status, her ability to stand and perch, and eventually they will be assessing her flight ability. Again, I cannot guarantee that any or all of this is being done. These are just things that are generally done in a bird rehabilitation center. So the big question really is, can Jackie eventually return to the wild? Of course, we are all hoping for that, but rehabilitation isn't just about surviving. A successful release of an eagle has requirements. It requires them to be able to fly strongly, not just fly, but fly strongly, to be able to hunt effectively, to be able to maintain their balance, to be able to perch normally, to be able to avoid human dependency. Otherwise, they won't survive in the wild. So ultimately, they must be able to function independently in the wild. So while we all want her released as soon as possible, we also want her to be fully rehabilitated and completely well to ensure her survival long term if she does get released. I do want to add, just from a general medical knowledge perspective, that if this is a case of, they mentioned they're testing for lead and zinc and rodenticides. If that is the situation, we don't know. Those results do take time to come back. But if it is, it will most likely require something called chelation. And I do mention this. Number one, I'm a nurse. I have dealt with this as a nurse. I've also dealt with this as a patient. I have had lead poisoning firsthand, and I have gone through chelation for it. So I did want to share this information. Again, I'm a human. I'm not a bird, but I did some research and I do want to share my findings. So for an eagle, this would likely require intensive, long-term supportive care, gastrointestinal decontamination to remove any remaining fragments, and chelation therapy, like I mentioned, to bind and excrete any heavy metals from the bloodstream. This treatment usually begins with x-rays, which we know they already did, to look for metal fragments in the body. Then it leads to blood work, which we already know they did. If the x-ray did show metal in the body, there could be a foreign body removal, but they did say that they didn't find any in Jackie. But the cornerstone of this treatment is typically chelation. There are a few different options like using EDTA or DMSA, but chelation therapy strips the body of both toxic metals as well as essential minerals. And the chelation medications themselves can be quite taxing. Thus, eagles do require extensive supportive care while undergoing chelation. They will typically need fluid therapy and nutrition therapy. And because lead is typically stored in bones and soft tissue, it can redistribute back into the bloodstream. So it does require some long-term monitoring over several weeks, sometimes months. This is to ensure that the metals have safely cleared. So while Jackie is fighting for her life, again, I am not diagnosing Jackie. I'm not saying this is what they're going to do. We do know that they are testing for toxic metals or rodenticides, and I'm just sharing general information on what they might do if that does come up positive. So while Jackie's fighting for her life, Shadow is continuing to navigate life without his mate by his side as a single dad at this time. The benefits of Nest cameras is that it brings them closer to more people than would ever be possible without the camera, obviously. This makes more people aware of eagles and their situations and their needs. It makes people more aware of wildlife conservation. Bald eagles are an amazing and extraordinary conservation success story. I mentioned that in my previous video on Scruffy and Lie. It will be linked in the description box if you want to check it out. It also brings awareness to habitat protection. I do know there is a big fight going on for land very close to Jackie and Shadow's nest, and they are asking for donations to help save that area and protect it. But the survival of individual animals is important, but protecting habitat overall is what allows populations to thrive. There are often human and wildlife conflicts, and sometimes it comes down to very difficult choices. Territorial disputes are natural, but development and human activity can definitely affect nesting habitats and wildlife behavior. The Big Bear Nest Cam has allowed people to witness firsthand birth, parenting, survival, death, weather, competition, and many natural behaviors that we otherwise would never have seen. Like I said earlier, Jackie's story has always been about resilience. We watched her survive storms, raise young, endure loss, and return to that nest again and again. Right now, she's facing a different kind of storm, one that requires the expertise of wildlife, rehabilitators, and veterinarians. We don't know what the outcome will be, but we do know that Jackie is receiving care, she's being monitored, and she's being given a chance. And for those of us who have watched her story for years, that's something worth hoping for and praying for. Like I said, this story is ongoing. I will be providing updates as I hear, so please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day, and God bless you.